Welcome back, folks, to WrestleRant, where I give my in-depth analysis of all the pay-per-views that I watch on the WWE Network. Today, I'll be talking about the 2000 installment of the Royal Rumble, and as noted before, the entire month of January right here on WrestleRant will be dedicated to reviewing past Royal Rumble pay-per-views. I talked about the 1996 installment in my last video this past week, if you want to go back and check it out. Today I'm talking about the 2000 show, and in upcoming editions for the remainder of the month, I'll be talking about the 01 installments, 2002, 2004, 2005, 2007, 2008, 2010, and 2011. So keep on posted for the remainder of the month for all those videos. It's going to be fun watching them back. I had a lot of fun watching this show, 2000. And as noted before, I forgot to mention this at the start, but I've talked about this in the last few videos, and that the remainder of going forward, all WrestleRant videos will be in audio form. It's a lot easier to edit and upload and stuff like that as opposed to filming it with the webcam. It's not really that big of a difference, but I just thought I'd throw that out there. So just for those that were not aware of that and watching the past videos that I put up in the last couple of weeks. But anyway, though, kicking off this show, Royal Rumble 2000 in the heart of Manhattan, New York City, in Madison Square Garden. No better place to host this show. A great crowd all night long. I was just there a couple days ago. Not Madison Square Garden. I did pass by it, though, but for the Destination Impact TNA Impact Wrestling show in New York City. Always great crowds in New York, whether it be Manhattan Center, or the Madison Square Garden, or even in Brooklyn. It doesn't even have to be New York City, but the New York crowds are always awesome, and this show is no different. So kicking off the show was Kurt Angle, who had been undefeated in one-on-one competition, issuing an open challenge. And he had been undefeated since Survivor Series, which I don't think I talked about in my WrestleRant reviews for Survivor Series in 1999. But he had been undefeated for about 2 months by this point, issuing an open challenge. Pretty much everyone knew who it was already. There were signs for this guy when he came out, but it was the submission specialist, Taz, from ECW. I think he was the ECW champion at the time. They didn't mention that when he came out, but I think he might have been champion. I'm not exactly sure. But still, though, a hell of a debut for the ECW legend that was Taz, coming out to the ring, answering the open challenge of Kurt Angle. People going crazy. No better way of opening up this show. The two having a very good matchup, as one would only expect from them. Taz showing off each of his submissions and his suplexes. The suplex machine Taz just going all out on Kurt Angle. They could have probably had a better, more competitive matchup. But it was kind of more so about showcasing the talent that was, Taz. And, they wanted to have a really strong debut for Taz. And they really did do that here. I never really heard much from Taz going forward. I know he was involved in the Invasion, obviously, about a year and a half later. But I never really felt they did more, that they used Taz to his full potential at his time with WWE. He really didn't do much of note before he kind of transitioned over to commentary, which is a shame, because this was one hell of a debut. But he ended up locking in one of his Taz missions onto Kurt Angle, making him pass out. The whole controversy here was that the hold that he used was illegal, and that was kind of the focus of the matchup afterwards. They didn't really talk about. I was a little disappointed with that. I'm not going to complain here, but they were a little more focused, the commentators that is, on driving home the fact that the Taz mission was illegal, and that he shouldn't have been using it, all this other stuff. The focus really wasn't on Taz's first WWE matchup or him arriving in WWE, how awesome it was. It was more on Kurt Angle getting choked out and how it wasn't really a legal hold. Even though Kurt Angle was the heel, it wasn't the other way around, so that was a little bit weird. But still, though, very hot debut for Taz in the 2000 Royal Rumble, and a hell of a way to kick off the show. So up next, we have the Elimination Tables match between the Hardy Boys, Matt and Jeff, versus the Dudley Boys, Bubba Ray and Devon. No tag team titles on the line. We would have a tag team title match later on in the show. But this was all about just personal feuds, and this was, of course, around the time when we were having the triangle ladder matches and the three-way TLC matches between the Hardy Boys, the Dudley Boys, and Edge and Christian. This matchup was only the Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys, but it was one hell of a matchup for an Elimination Tables match. There were tables breaking left and right with people not going through them, and Swanton bombs from Jeff Hardy, one that made the highlight reel that you see every once in a while when they do these table spots. But, Jeff Hardy was standing above the entranceway, did a Swanton through the table onto Bubba to close out the matchup and pick up the victory for his team. But the entire matchup was absolutely insane. These guys taking spots left and right, taking high risk after high risk. Such a crazy matchup, and the crowd ate it all up, as you would expect any New York crowd to do, or any other crowd for that matter. Such an awesome matchup, and what this period in time for the tag team division was all about. The epitome of tag team wrestling, with only 3 teams for the most part. The tag team division, though, was really stacked at this period of time. And the matches themselves, the quality of these matches were so great. And this was only a little example of that. So I really enjoyed this matchup. Had a great spot in the second spot on the card, right behind the debut of Taz, and right before the tag team title match and the IC title match and everything else that went down on the show. Kind of kicking in the crowd to another gear, kind of keeping up the electricity after the debut of Taz. So I thought the placement of the match on the card was really good. The match itself was absolutely awesome. Really enjoyed it. If you're a table spot crazy guy, you would love this matchup as much as I did. I thought it was great. But awesome stuff all around from the Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys. Definitely go back and watch this matchup. Only 10 minutes, but for that 10 minutes, they go balls to the wall and go all out crazy. And like I said before, the Hardy Boys picked up the victory. So up next, we have the Intercontinental Championship on the line. Chris Jericho and Chyna defending against Hardcore Holly in a triple threat match of the WWE Intercontinental Championship. Now, the reason why I said Jericho and Chyna, because for anyone that was familiar with the storyline, Jericho and Chyna were co-Intercontinental Champions at this period in time. They had pinned one another in a matchup shortly before this, and both were deemed the Intercontinental Champion, co-Intercontinental Champions. So an undisputed champion was going to be crowned in this matchup, triple threat rules, also involving Hardcore Holly. The match itself was okay, only went about 7.5 minutes. Really wasn't anything too special, but to any ordinary fan to see Chyna and there a woman, taking it to Jericho and Hardcore Holly, it may seem out of the ordinary. But anyone that grew up at this period in time, I didn't, but anyone that's familiar with Chyna and her work, it really wasn't anything out of the ordinary. She was something of her own. She was in a completely different league in terms of the women and whatnot. She competed, the first ever woman to compete in the Royal Rumble matchup in 1999. She would do so again this same year in 2000, and I'll get to that when I get to the Royal Rumble matchup. But, she was treated as an equal to Jericho and Hardcore Holly in this matchup. It was not 2 guys against 1 woman. It was a 3-way war for the Intercontinental Championship, so pretty good matchup for the most part. Chyna locking in the walls of Jericho, trying to add insult to injury to take back her Intercontinental Championship. Was unable to do so. Jericho picked up the victory following a Lion Tamer to quote-unquote retain his IC title or take full possession of that championship. So Jericho walking away with full rights to the Intercontinental Championship, full custody, I guess, on what you can call it. So Jericho walks away with the title. Decent match there. Up next for the WWF Tag Team titles, the New Age Outlaws taking on the Acolytes for the WWF Tag Team Championships. The New Age Outlaws defending, and pretty good matchup for the most part. Only 2.5 minutes. I was really disappointed with that. And what I liked about this matchup, though, was that unlike today, and not to put down today's product, even though the product back in 2000 was obviously a lot hotter than it is in 2015. But still, though, the part that I really liked about this matchup was not only was there an existing feud between these two teams, they're not like Road Dogg beat Bradshaw in a singles match on SmackDown before this, like we see nowadays when we see Jimmy Uso versus The Miz. The part that I really liked about this was that there was a real feud between these two tag teams to prove who was superior. You have your Jimmy Uso and The Miz feuding over Naomi, whatever else. That's okay, but that wasn't a tag team feud. This was all about the tag team titles, and the Acolytes wanted to take those belts from the New Age Outlaws. Like I said, the match itself was a little disappointing. It was fine for what it was, but it was only 2.5 minutes, and there's only so much time that you could do in that period in time. And maybe they were trying to rush things because they wanted to give more time to the WWE title match or the Royal Rumble that only went about 50 minutes, which I thought was a little surprising. Usually those matches go a lot longer. But still, I thought this was a really good angle. Not so the match, but I thought it was a really good angle. The New Age Outlaws cheating to win, retaining the WWF Tag Team titles, and this would not be the last time we would see any of these guys in the night. They would later appear on the Royal Rumble. Like I said, I'll get to that in a minute. So up next, for the WWF Championship, a street fight between Triple H and Cactus Jack, a.k.a. Mick Foley. So anyone that's familiar with this period in time knows that the early 2000s, that the early 2000s were all about Triple H, Mick Foley, and everyone else, The Rock, who would go on to win the Royal Rumble, and I'll get to that in a minute, like I said before. But 2000 was the year of Triple H, the year that he really broke out onto his own, and this matchup really proved that. Some people say that the Hell in a Cell matchup with Cactus Jack the following month at No Way Out really made really made Triple H, and it did. But I thought this matchup kind of gets underrated, kind of gets overlooked in favor of that matchup, but I've seen that matchup before. I thought that was an amazing matchup. But watching this matchup back for the very first time, I thought it was excellent. A lot of hardcore action between Triple H and Cactus Jack. These two going absolutely all out. A lot of awesome near falls. And this is Cactus Jack, or was Cactus Jack's, backyard. This was his hometown crowd. So that's what made the atmosphere that much more electric and exciting, seeing how those fans really wanted to see Cactus Jack win that WWF Championship. Pedigrees through the commentating tables, on the thumbtacks in the ring, Mr. Sacco's, everything else going down here, double arm DDTs, both guys pulling out everything out of their arsenal to put the other away, and it was all null and void until Triple H hit a pedigree on Cactus Jack. He kicks out at 2, place goes crazy, hits one more pedigree on the thumbtacks for the 1, 2, 3 to retain the WWE title. But that's not it. As he's being taken out, because Triple H is so brutal and bloodied from this matchup to the point where he had to be taken out on a stretcher. Obviously in kayfabe and storyline, but it really added to the matchup and the war that these two had, where Triple H is being taken out on a stretcher to close this matchup. And as he's being taken out in the stretcher, Cactus Jack comes out from the dead after being after being taken out by Triple H. He comes back, he takes Triple H off the stretcher, and continues to beat the shit out of the guy in the middle of the ring. It was great, and a great way to further the feud, too, because like I said before, this would not be the end of the line for this feud. Cactus Jack would continue to chase that WWF title going into WrestleMania, and he did a really good job of that. So both guys, amazing matchup, amazing feud here, and really going to war with one another, really showing what hardcore wrestling is all about. Not taking any unnecessary spots. I mean, there were some unnecessary spots, but they added to the matchup. They weren't overlooked in favor of other shit on the show. There wasn't any other hardcore matches on the show except for this one, so it really stood out above all the rest. But great matchup and a real standout performance for Triple H, if I do say so myself. So we get to the 30-man Royal Rumble matchup where the winner earns a WWF title match of the main event of WrestleMania 2016, whatever you want to call it. But the Rumble match itself, I really, really enjoyed. I thought it was a lot better than the 96 Rumble. Of course, those are two different period in times. And, 96 and 2000, there's a 4-year difference there. But, watching the two back-to-back, I really enjoy this one a lot more. Maybe because the crowd is more electric or whatever else. I mean, they were good for different reasons, and I'll get to the cons in this matchup, but to pull out the highlights of what I enjoyed of this Rumble, for the most part, it felt like it went by quick. For the 30 people that came out, it felt like people were coming out at a very quick pace. I mean, at some points, it was kind of like, it was dragged out a little bit, like when they had the Too Cool reunion in the middle of the ring, which I thought was awesome, one of the best parts of the entire Rumble. Rikishi throwing out 7 people, having the record for most eliminations in this matchup. And out comes Grandmaster Sexy and it's Scotty 2 Hotty having a mini Too Cool reunion in the ring. I thought it was great. Really, really entertaining. Doing the dance that Rikishi throws out Sexy and Scotty 2 Hotty out of the ring, celebrating on his own, doing the dance on his own. I thought it was great. But, Rikishi was a star of the matchup early on, so that was really entertaining. Bob Backlund making a Royal Rumble return in this contest. This was before the period of time. I mean, it really wouldn't be until 2008 that we would get the Royal Rumble returns every year. I mean, we would get a few in 02, maybe 1 or 2 in 05 and 06, but it really wouldn't become a thing that people would start to expect every year until about 08, 09. And I really enjoyed it here with Bob Backlund. Being the Backlund fan that I am, and with it being New York City, his backyard, and people got a kick out of him coming in, and he was all crazy for the few minutes he was in the matchup. And when he got thrown out, he exited through the audience. It was really entertaining, so he was a very pleasant surprise into having this matchup. And also, we would get to see the Acolytes again, the New Age Outlaws. We would see Chyna, Hardcore Holly, Jericho. Chyna would actually throw out when China would actually throw out Chris Jericho, kind of furthering that feud after what happened earlier on in the night. We would have Funaki interfere a few times, kind of because they were telling the narrative on commentary that they didn't land a spot in the Royal Rumble, so they were going to interfere anyway. They keep it like 2 or 3 times. Same thing with the Mean Street Posse. I can't say it really added anything to the Rumble, unless they were kind of, jump-starting a feud between them and the Acolytes. It really wasn't anything, too necessary. But still, though, there were a lot of stories being told in this Rumble that I really, really enjoyed. We get down to the final 3 or 4 participants. It's Kane, X-Pac, Big Show, and The Rock. The Rock lastly eliminates the Big Show to pick up the victory. He cuts a promo afterwards saying that he's finally going to WrestleMania to contend for the WWF title. And Big Show comes back out, attacks him, throws him over the top rope, and the two have a brief stare down with Rock's music playing to close out the show. So the Rumble itself I really, really enjoyed. What I didn't really like about it, not to complain, but there weren't a lot of people that you thought were going to win. There was a lot of undercard talent. And for a really stacked roster, even back in 2000, for a stacked roster that we had in the Attitude Era, there just wasn't a lot of top names that you thought could come out victorious in this matchup. The only real 2 people that had any legitimate shot at walking away with the Rumble victory was The Rock and The Big Show, who it was all about the entire time. The Rock did a backstage segment, a backstage interview earlier on in the night, talking about how he would take out The Big Show and go on to WrestleMania to win that championship. So it was really being foreshadowed even before the matchup began that The Rock was going to come out and win this matchup. I mean, it was really predictable, but I mean, it's The Rock, so you can't really complain. It was his first Rumble victory. It wasn't, he wasn't winning it for a second or third time. So it really was something new and fresh in that period of time. But the crowd absolutely loved him. I mean, the commentators were counting down as to when he would be in the matchup. And so, like I said, this matchup was really all about The Rock for the most part. Really wasn't any reason to believe that anyone else like a Farouk or a Prince Albert or a Godfather would win this matchup. But for the most part, though, it was a very, very entertaining and fun Royal Rumble. I loved it. The Rock coming out victorious as your 2000 Royal Rumble winner. So that closed out the show. Really enjoyed the show on the whole. There really wasn't anything I really had a problem with. There was that I forgot to mention before, probably for the better. But the Divas Bikini Contest, where we had a lot of the Divas come out to the ring, show off their bikinis, show them off to the legends at ringside, all the WWE Hall of Famers. And then out comes Mae Young, showing off her stuff, for lack of a better word, showing her quote-unquote puppies to the world. Place, mows and groans. I thought it was the most hilarious thing ever. Thankfully, they edited it out on the WWE Network, and I was not in the unfortunate few that had to watch it uncensored, so thankfully that was the case. But, yeah, it was really, really entertaining, though. I'm always a sucker for Mae Young and, her antics in these kind of matches and stuff like that, the bikini contest. It's gross, obviously, but it's always very, very fun. So, not even that really took away anything from this show. I thought that was pretty funny. But absolutely on the show, on the whole, this show, amazing. Go back and watch the WWE Network. No real complaints whatsoever. Love the Taz debut. Great way to kick off the show. The tag team tables match was amazing. Go back and watch that. Fantastic stuff. IC title match, good stuff there. Tag team title match, short and sweet for the most part. WWE title match, street fight, fantastic stuff from Cactus Jack and Triple H. Love that matchup. And the Royal Rumble was very entertaining on the whole. So, one of the best Royal Rumbles in history, maybe? That's up for debate. But I think it's definitely the top 5, if not the top 3. I mean, this is only one of the first few Rumbles that I've watched. But, from what I've heard from other people and going back and reading lists and stuff of the best Rumbles of all time, this ranks pretty high. And I don't blame it because the New York crowd was great. They were an awesome audience, electric atmosphere all night long. The entire card was great. A lot of monumental moments with The Rock winning the Rumble, Taz making his debut. No new champions crowned except for Chris Jericho, but he kind of retained. And the action itself was very, very exciting and off the charts amazing. So I would highly suggest that you go back and watch the show. Very much recommend it on the WWE Network as we quickly approach the 2015 Royal Rumble pay-per-view. So my next WrestleRant video, I'll be talking about the 2001 installment of the Royal Rumble. Another Rumble where people highly regard it as one of the best of all time. So I look forward to watching that. Make sure to tune in to my next video for that review. And in the meantime and in between time, folks, you can catch me on Twitter at WrestleRant, on Facebook, Graham Jason Matthews. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll catch you guys in my next video. Until then, have a great week, folks.